All right, everyone, it's time for a rather important video here, actually, which is that the war on women's spaces and on women's right to be left alone, it bleeds over into something I mentioned briefly yesterday, but I wanted to talk about it, which is the decline of men's-only spaces as well. In the gender war thing, which has become sort of a three-way war at this point with people who want women's rights. Specifically, that's what they're focused on. So feminists and stuff like that. And then MRAs and people who want men's only spaces and they want to have a place to just be around their bros and be left alone. You've got this third column, so to speak, of individuals that want to bend those lines and say, well, you're not allowed to have your own spaces anymore. You have to accept us for who we are. This has been a thing against men longer than it has been, by the way, against women. Men-only spaces have been in decline for a long time. There used to be, like 100 years ago, there were all sorts of gentlemen's clubs and stuff, no women allowed, where men would sit around and harumph, and then they would smoke their cigars and talk about the news and stuff like that. And get together. There were civic opportunities, of course. There was charitable work that was done, and women did the same thing. They had their own clubs, they had their own spaces as well, free of men. Even if you look at like the Freemasons, like 100 years ago when they were in vogue, men had their own Masonic lodges. Women were not allowed. Female auxiliaries had their own space. They had their own clubs. I've got literature actually from the Freemasons actually at the time. And it's like, meeting lists and stuff like that for the females that were part of the Masonic community. And they had their own spaces. They had their own clubs and they would cook and do things like that. They would do charitable work. They were doing the same thing as the men were doing, but it was a segregated space. It was segregated by gender. The men's clubs have by and large disappeared. All the old lodges and gentlemen's clubs and things like that and like men-only golf courses and stuff mostly have disappeared. And now female spaces are disappearing too. And when I try to point this out, sometimes I get pushback from people who are like, they're male, usually. And they're like, well, they've been doing this for a long time. And women have been chipping away at our spaces. They weren't the ones that were doing it. A bunch of rich, empowered people are trying to blur the lines between the two dichotomous genders in order to enslave us all. They're trying to get men to hate women. Well, look, these women, they're all a bunch of trollops and stuff. Haha, good luck finding a woman that doesn't have a body count in the triple digit range. Then they'll go to the women and say, aha, look, these men, they're constantly trying to oppress you. They're trying to keep you out of their spaces and stuff like that. Really, attacks on women are also attacks on men. The attack is coming from that third column, which seeks to eliminate the very idea of female and male. That's basically what we're dealing with. It's part of communism. You render everyone into a homogenized cog in the system, you smush them all together, and in the end, what you get is a pile of fucking shit, really. We've seen it before. This is what the Soviet Union used to do. They tried to blur those same lines as often as possible in order to homogenize people. Because if you homogenize them, it's easier to control them. Having men's only spaces and having women's only spaces, I think, is a good idea. Now, should there be unisex spaces? Of course. It's like I've suggested for years now with sports. There's such an easy solution to this fucking problem of gender within sports. There's a women's league, there's a men's league, and then there's a league where anyone can compete. If you choose to go in there and compete in the unisex league, no harm, no foul. It's voluntary. You can do whatever you want. Male, female, whatever, your twin spirit or whatever. Nobody cares. You're allowed to do that. You should be able to form your own league. But there should also be leagues specifically for biological men, which means men. They're the same thing. It's this new terminology that they're using is also a form of propaganda. And for biological women, which means women. And then for anyone that feels left out, if you like, you were born with a dick and a Y chromosome, but you feel female, you were born with two X chromosomes and a vagina, but you feel male, you can have your own sports league. There's nothing wrong with that. Very simple solution. Same with bathrooms. I should be able to go into the bathroom, not have to have a woman throwing her used tampons around. A woman should be able to use the bathroom and not have to worry about a man leering over the side and beating off, listening to her take a shit. This is called common sense. It's something that is notably absent from governance and from policy in general these days. Easy solution. But men deserve their own spaces too. What I don't see, other than people that are like they don't like women. They have suspicion towards women. They harbor some sort of ill will towards women, but they're not talking about the erasure of men's only spaces as well. It's not just women that are suffering, it's also men. We're not allowed to have a space where we can say, and when we do have a bro space, then people will make jokes about it being gay. Or, well, you're just machismo and stuff like that. Oh my God, I went off with other dudes in the woods and we shot animals and fried them over an open fire and had a great time doing it. Yeah, that's terribly gay. It's really ridiculous when you think about it. That's like saying that a woman's only space is a place for lesbianism. It's basically the same thing, only that trope hasn't been taken up by the legacy media for a reason. It's not because they uniquely hate men. Here's the key. Here's the secret. They hate women too. They hate everyone. They don't want anyone to have their own space. They don't even believe in private property half of the time. Well, no, you've got to take these homeless drifters in because they got into your house. You're not allowed to evict them and stuff like that. It's the erasure of the concept of individuality and of individual agency, of the individual's right to associate with who they wish to associate with. This extends to gender. It extends to race. It extends to religion. I mean, the local synagogue, for example, here in Rutland, hosts Islamic dinner meetings. Let that sink in for a moment. No, you heard me right. Yes, the local Islamists, because they don't have their own mosque, because there aren't enough of them to bother building a mosque in Rutland, they use the synagogue. How fucking funny is that? But you're not allowed to have your own space. And I'm sure that there are some people in the Jewish community locally who are not happy about the fact that that's happening. Let's put it that way. Sort of like when the Pope invites a bunch of Islamists into the Vatican and kisses their feet and stuff like that. It's happened on a number of occasions. People should be able to have their own space individually, and their own space in comfort with who they wish to associate with. If a woman wants to use the locker room and doesn't want men around, she's a woman. Why should she have to fucking deal with that? If I go to a locker room, should I have to deal with women being around and potentially seeing my dong hanging out or something? No, I shouldn't have to deal with that. It's an erasure of both individualized spaces. It's not about an actual gender war. It's a war by communists, effectively, and the wokesters, which are intertwined generally anyway. It's a war of them against literally everyone else, against 99% of the population, using that 1% of the population as a cudgel. It's nothing more. They're trying to groom these individuals to be a thorn in the side of the concept that people can have individual agency, which communists hate, individual agency, and also the ability to get together into groups, the grouping of which they themselves configure according to what they want. So this is a church. We're Christians here. We don't want services from another religion here. This is a mosque. If you're in this mosque, you act according to Islam. You don't act according to whatever other religion you may have. You have to show us respect in your space. This should bleed over into gender. I'm not going to go use the women's locker room. I don't know why you'd want to anyway, actually. I'm going to go to the men's locker room. And there's nothing wrong with this. This is the way that things have been for a very long time. And the idea that it's outdated and too traditionalistic and moralistic, again, make your own unisex space. I fully support this. If you want the unisex locker room that inevitably will turn into an area where people are fucking in the stalls and stuff like that, go ahead. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you're into, whatever. Just leave the kids and animals out of it and nobody really has a problem. So yes, men deserve their own spaces too. We should have our own space in space where we can simply be men. We can simply be the boys. The women have the same right. It's quite elementary when you think about it. Now think about to yourselves, who would decide that that was a bad thing? That there was something wrong with people having the right to associate with who they wish to associate with, situationally or in general. Who is trying to take your agency away? It's not some random woman. It's not some feminist. It's not some random man, some random men rights activist. They're not trying to take your free space away. No, it's the people up there, the higher ups, so to speak. They're the ones that are doing it. That's about all. Peace out.